Okay, we're close enough, I guess. We're gonna call our meeting to order. This is a special meeting of the Thurston County Fire District 8 Board of Commissioners. And our topic is talking about the 2026 budget and budget recommendation information that Chief Van Camp provided us. And I believe everybody should have copies of the documents. Do you have those available, Jake?
I do, yes.
Okay,
Yes, yes, I have it.
awesome. Okay, with that, Mr. Van Camp.
Okay, thank you. What I had intended to do is kind of walk through the process about the same order of that cover sheet that I sent you all. But before we, pardon me, before we start, I'd just like to give you an update. We just received the newest revenue numbers. So everything's off. We're getting more money than we can spend. So instead of hiring 5 firefighters, we're gonna hire 10 of them now. So I'm just kidding.
April 1st.
Yeah, it's not April 1st yet, but unfortunately, we went from 1.5% increase to 1.4% now. So the numbers keep not getting better. So
how do they do that when we vote for an M&O levy for it to be put back to normal, and then we do the 6% and all that, and then they only give us the now it's 1.4? How do they determine that?
Well, it's nothing to do with the levy. It's the overall total assessed valuation of all the properties. So you have to set what the property values are to determine what the tax rates will be. So it's not the levy, it's not the levy rate or the excess levy. It's just the assessed valuations.
Okay.
And then the assessed valuations will then control what the levies will then be. So it won't change the excess levy because the excess levy is for a fixed amount of money.
Okay.
It does affect the base levy.
Okay.
So anyway, for all of that, just to let you know that again, we continue to monitor what the assessed valuations are. And we, as you well know, we have already certified the levy for next year. And so obviously that amount may change a little bit between now and the first of the year. Generally, the final levy or final assessed valuations are not set until after the first of the year by the county assessor. So the final numbers will actually happen, and we'll get those numbers after the first of the year. So I don't expect them to change much. So any questions on the revenue side at all? Okay. So I did put together a kind of what I call the budget issues and interests. And I was hoping to try to cover all of those, the discussion that we had last time, and follow up on some information like for alternative sources of funding and so like that. So I did include that, some of that. And and I apologize getting them out only yesterday, but there was information I needed and didn't get it in time. But again, trying to lay it out. So just walking through the document, explaining that, one, we understand that there's a reduction in the assumed amount of growth in the AV, which obviously affects our tax levy. And also the fact that at this time, we believe that there's not going to be, don't expect any major changes in the ensuing years, at least in the next 3 or so years. It's what we're being told by the market and everything. So because of that, then the assumption that I've made in estimating what our out year costs and revenues would be, changing, recommending that it be changed from the 6.5% to the 1.5%.
Quick question for you on the looking forward. stuff, 3 years out, 2, 3, 4 years out, and that kind of thing. Do we get, does the county assessor's office provide their future look about that? What is the source of our future look? Is it
Talking
to other districts or?
Well, actually, I talked with some folks that I know that are in the banking industry. And one of them that was in the real estate business. All of this really revolves around the market for real estate.
Right.
And that affects the overall assessed valuation of real property. So, I didn't query Alan Goldspan or anybody like that, but I there was a general pessimistic feeling about what the trend of the market is.
Yeah.
I think that the term was it's cooling down.
Sure.
So
Okay, it was interesting. I wondered about the source.
I didn't do an exhaustive
No, I
research,
just
but
wondered if we get that from the county or we just had to reach out to real estate people.
yeah. Well, and as you well know, the state has an economic, sort of feds, but they've all, I think the last state report came in the day before yesterday, and it was a slight drop in expected revenues as well. And that ultimately is assessed valuation throughout the state too, I believe.
Oh, okay, yeah, there is some.
Well, there's,
I mean, a majority of it is, sales tax.
Sales taxes,
It's
so
unfortunate.
forth, but schools are dependent primarily on property tax
Right.
and so forth, so. Anyway, as part of the drill, I'm not assuming for the next 5-year period that there will be any significant increase in AVs. So having said all of that and kind of resetting our rules here for all of this, then what we are doing is comparing what we have today in our 5-year plan for expenditures and then having to deal with a new assumption on future revenues. So, and I'm using what I was calling a ending cash balance. So essentially what that shows is at the end of the year, after you've received all your income and you've made all your expenditures, what's left in your checkbook at the end of the year. So as you well know as a homeowner, that if your income is going down and your expenses don't change, or they go up, you're gonna have a problem at the end of the month or at the end of the year. So we're in the same battle that we have, because of the decreased revenue that we can expect. The whole drill here is to look at how we make that adjustment on the expense side. Okay. And we do have two components, as I mentioned before. We have our regular that we did, plus we have our excess levy that we passed a couple years ago to help complement the funding that we need. It was good news that we did have an excess levy because it's not directly affected by AVs, other than how it established the levy rate for that, but it doesn't decrease. We've said that we're going to ask for these X dollars every year for the 4-year period.
Yeah.
And we received that.
Correct. And can you remind us what those dollars?
It was 2 million, 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3 or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
It's slight increase. So this year is 2 million.
Right.
26 for 26.
The slight increase that was in the plan, or it was part of the levy, then was to address inflation and that kind of thing.
Correct.
Yeah.
So as you well know, again, that the 5-year plan, one of the pieces of the plan, one of the major pieces of the plan was increasing our career staff up to 28 total career staff. And the idea was, of course, to better staff our 2 primary fire stations here and at North Olympia. It also included a proposal to promote 3 lieutenants that would be within that 28 FTE staff. And we also included a full-time admin assistant to help Heidi. So essentially it was, that was our goal in the 5-year plan for additional staff. So what I did do is look at 3 different scenarios, try to look at what the cash balance at the end of the year looks like based on those 3 scenarios. The first was assuming that our expense plan would be the same for the 5-year plan. That's bringing on the additional people and all of that. The second one was a hybrid proposal that we looked at for adding 2 new career firefighters and the administrative assistant. So we would have, in that scenario, we would add 3 new employees. And then the third was a proposal to add no new employees in 2026. So I worked to try to put some sort of a picture together that how this would all look. So if you look at appendix, well, appendix 1, if you flip back the page, shows what the historical costs for labor have been for our incident readiness and response staff. And as to no surprise, you can see there was a growing cost for our career staff as we bring additional career staff on. And then, of course, they get raises and everything as well. And so as it's becoming a larger piece of our operating budget. So as I mentioned in the page, there are currently for our operating budget for 2025 this year, it's about 68% of our operating budget. So flip to the next page, you can see what appendix 2, and essentially what that does is charting the ending cash balance for each of the 3 scenarios, and compares it to the original 5-year plan that we had, which is the wider purple line. And it also tries to display that we understood, know, and plan for continued use of the excess levy, which expires after 2028. So that yellow area is what we're going to have to ask the voters to approve in 2028 so that we can continue to have that excess levy after 2028. So again, this was all part of the 5-year plan. We understood it. We told all the voters that after 4 years that this would, we would be coming back to have you continue to support through an excess levy. And the plan in the 5-year plan did include, the amounts that would push that purple line above the yellow triangle there. Now, what happened with the reduced revenues created that scenario that like I mentioned before. We've got ongoing or increasing expenditures with a reduced income. So if you look at that down at the bottom, it shows the key to that. So the bottom line that you can see there, that blue one, is the original plan expenditures compared to the revenue received if we only have AV growth of 1.5%. So you can see that it crosses the zero cash left in the bank line in 2027, and then it continues to go down. The next line over, the red one, is the hybrid proposal that I mentioned, suggesting that we hire 2 firefighters and an admin assistant without any increased revenue, and what the impact with that is. So again, it's not as bad, but it still drops down into the negative for our cash balance in about 2028. The green line is the expense line for not hiring any new employees with the current revenue that we can expect at the 1.5% growth. And then the wide purple one is for the original plan. What I was trying to demonstrate is which I tried to explain last time, was that the decisions that we make now will affect the downward bow wave of the increased expense. So if we try to spend more and our revenues don't increase, it's going to put us into debt more quickly and to a greater extent as the time goes on. I think that's fairly intuitive. I hope. Is there any questions that make sense, or?
Yeah, the only thing I have is if we don't bring on the firefighters, then if we can sustain them for, the next 3 years until the M&O levy, then it's going to show to the citizens, the community, that we actually, did what we needed to do, staff them. So when we go out for another levy, they're going to be more favorable to vote for it, knowing that we did, staff better at both stations. So I'm just still looking at, we still need to hire staffing, and when we go out for the other levy, it's just going to show that we at least fulfilled at least a good portion of our commitment that we said we would do.
I hear what you're saying. I think the problem is that if the revenue doesn't change, we have no way of paying those people.
Yeah, but we don't know. I mean, we don't know that. I mean, that's looking into the future. We need to look, we need to look now also. And if we have to lay off, then you have to lay off if the levy doesn't pass. But at least we have people in line. And I know at one point you talked about hiring, more lieutenants. I don't think that's necessary. I don't know if that's still in the 5-year plan or not. I think it's more important that we hire firefighters and the assistant admin for Heidi.
Well, as I heard, the plan, with regard to lieutenants, it was promotions and not additional staff.
Right.
Okay, I was under the impression it was more additional lieutenant staff.
No, they would be, the cadre of lieutenants are included in the 28 FTEs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, part of the thing is that if we increase our expenditures this year for 26, and then presumably through 27 and 28, it just drives us deeper and deeper into a cash position. And then to recover that, if we go back to the citizens and ask them to approve an excess levy, even if we had those people and could afford them, that the increase in the levy that we would have to ask for that excess levy would be substantially higher than if we hold off spending that money now. I think I displayed it last time, to recoup the cost and pay for the cost that we don't have income for. It would change the fact that the levy rate, for example, for 2029 would go from about $2.06 that we'd originally thought was based on the old assumptions to probably at $2.50. So you're looking at probably 40-cent increase in the levy rate. And I think, from my experience, the fact is that at that point in time, and I don't know what the circumstances will be in 28, whether the economy will be better, worse, or whatever. But we also made the promise of hiring these people based presumably on the assumptions we had, which include revenue, and the revenue assumptions changed. So I think with a straight face that we could go to the.
So just on your this sheet, it'd be nice if there were some horizontal axes on there, especially the zero line. Would have been nice. It looks like if you sort of estimate that through, if you were to draw it horizontally, it looks like you drop below, if you were to do the original 5-year plan and hire those 5 people or whatever, you're not even gonna make it into 28. You're barely,
No, it brought us over in 28, or in 27.
it's in 27. In about like the first or second month of 27, you go and run out of money.
Yeah.
And so if you hired people in 26, that many, you'd lay them off in 27. And you wouldn't get to 28 where you could talk to the voters and say, well, look, we did a good job of sustaining the open, or the number of staff members at our 2 fire stations. You would have had that happen for about a year, and that would have been it.
Yeah, and the same is if we use the hybrid, only 2 firefighters and the admin assistant, the same problem happens in 28,
Yeah, right. It's just after 28.
just 1 year later. So even with reduced number of staff, new staff, it's gonna happen before we can recoup it all.
Yes, because you won't get any additional dollars until 29.
Correct. If the voters approve.
Correct, right. Assuming voter approval.
And if I'm reading that right, it's the same circumstances happen in 2029 as well. If we don't have any future revenue coming in as an excess levy or M&O, doesn't matter what we're kind of up against. It looks like the outcome is pretty much the same for 27, 28, 29, no matter what we do. Is that correct?
As far as the revenue side, yes.
Yes. Okay. Good job with the graph. I think Doug is right that the dollar sign is the zero mark. So it's apparent that it doesn't matter what we do, we're going to have to be very strategic about the next steps and next decisions that we make. But I think we do have a better chance in getting that excess levy if we, God, I hate to say this might be a little, I don't know, irresponsible, but it might be worth taking that risk, staffing 2 engines when we ask the public for that, because we are going to have to do some kind of excess levy in the future. And it might be worth taking that risk now to fill those 2 engines 100% of the time and say, this is what we've done. This is what we need from you in the future. Not to say that that's the best answer, probably one of the most irresponsible answers that we have, but that's also, hey, this is the goal that we set forward in 2024 for the public. This is what we want to accomplish for the next couple of years, and this is what we need the public to help us out in 28, possibly 29.
Mhm.
I was going back through the kind of some of the documents you still have up on the website for South Bay Fire, and there's documents back there in 2017 stating these are our goals is to staff these 2 stations, and we have still yet to fulfill those promises to our public. And I don't think we're the only small department that are facing these challenges right now. They're all doing it. And it also brings up a larger question that we might have to talk in this group. What is the future of this department in the next 2-3 years too? Because I think we look up and down I-5 corridor and we see all of these smaller agencies getting gobbled up. And I know we've had these conversations before, but some of these problems lead into bigger questions that we're going to have to address at some point too, and what the future looks like for our department. Because I hate that idea as a firefighter of taking a job and then having the potential of that pink slip in the back pocket after 2 years, 3 years, or whatever it may be. We need some kind of strategic planning for sustainability at some point in the future, because this isn't going to end well, and it doesn't for small departments.
Mhm.
That was a lot.
Well said.
Well, I think those are all valid comments. I guess, well, let me move on a little bit and follow through to this. So the question came up about alternative sources of revenue, and as a fire district and under state law, we're limited to certain ways of getting money. Can't bet on the lottery or, things like that. So we're pretty much held to property tax income. And we have stretched it with the levy rate. We're up to $1.50, and because of the diminished growth for AV, we will be stuck at $1.50 for quite a while. We have an excess levy. Like I say, it's fortunate we had that because that's provided a bit of a cushion for us with a decreased AV. But still, as you can see by that chart we just looked at, it's not going to be enough for 5 years. So what I did look at, and you had mentioned about redirecting some funding from our capital repairs replacement or the reserve fund. And basically, by using those funds would be very similar to exactly what we did when we chose to supplement the operating budget with the original fire station capital fund that we had. We purposely decided that we weren't going to use that fund for capital purposes, but we would use it to supplement our budget between, was 22 or 3 until even this last year. It was the difference between what we were collecting on current revenues and what we had in the bank. We were spending our bank account down to increase our staffing and to, continue to do business. And I think it was a sound business decision, and it was something we did. But once that money's gone, it's gone. So that money that was in the finance and the capital finance reserve account we have is literally gone. There's only 30.
And how much originally was in there, Chief?
Pardon?
How much was in there that we depleted out of the capital?
About $1 million.
Okay.
And we transferred money for about 5 years out of it, and to balance our budget, if you will.
Right, and it also included the sale of those 3 properties.
It included sales of properties and.
Right, so we had a cash balance in that was intended originally for the development of the station up on 78. There were some of those dollars that remained, and then we also had the 3 properties that were sold, and those combined,
And there was some District 7 money that went in there too.
right. So then those dollars were used over the course of 3 or 4 years, so that we didn't have to do anything else.
Right. That's correct. So it would be the same case with using money from the CNR&R or the reserve fund. Now, the CNR&R, I did include a copy of the current plan, and it demonstrates the balancing act of what we're looking at in the future for replacing assets, facilities, equipment, vehicles, and so forth. And so we're continuing to contribute money to it. And there's a running cash balance there that sets us up. So at some point when we need to purchase or make a large purchase, like completing the station over at 83, we have the money already paid for. If we use that money up by transferring it to operating budget to pay for people and things like that, it uses that money up, and that means that there's less money available to program for replacement of assets. And so that would mean that either we don't replace them, or we'd have to find an alternative source of revenue to pay for them. And generally, a way of doing that is either voted or non-voted bonds. But again, the voted bonds need to have voter approval. And we'd have to explain why we are going back to them to pay for a GO bond levy, it's a separate levy. Or we could do what they call councilmatic bonds, which means that without a vote of the public, the board could choose to sell bonds, but that money's paid back by the operating budget. So you're in effect paying for that equipment like the same way you would be by making the annual allotment to the CNR&R. So really if we choose to use the CNR&R money and use it up, then either we don't replace assets or we would have to go for voted bonded debt.
So what I'm looking at this chart for all the apparatus, it doesn't look like we need to replace anything until 2030. Is that what this chart's that?
Well, there's costs for everything in there. There are projects for equipment and facilities and so forth.
She's down at the.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the very bottom. So I'm looking at the major, what would cost us a whole lot of money.
in
At
'26,
the,
there is a plan currently to replace one Tahoe and also to acquire one of the ambulances from Medic One and rehab it, so it's a viable BLS unit.
yeah, okay. But other than that, we don't have any big major expense on new equipment.
Well, if you go up and look at support administrative, we're constantly replacing computer equipment. We're constantly
Yeah,
replacing hose, we're constantly replacing fire equipment, motorized equipment, buildings, septic field, drain fields, roofs, you know. So it's not
Yeah.
just motor vehicles, it's everything.
okay, okay.
And I would like to remind you that every year, we've just gone through that process of looked at, you know, can we kick something out a little further or make choices like that? And we do that all the time. So I think this is a fairly conservative approach to future planned asset expenditures. But again, I think that the point that I was trying to make was that if we redirect that money to operating budget to pay for people, that it's going to get used up and we need to figure out some other way to pay for those things that are going to wear out, break, or become obsolete. If we chose to use the CNRR money to pay for people, for example, essentially it would pay for about 1.8 firefighters for 1 year. And after that year, there would be no further funding to pay for those. The district reserve fund is the same thing. I want to emphasize, this is an important piece of our risk management portfolio that we have. And as a public agency, the state auditor's office guidelines require that we have a reserve fund for a rainy day fund. We have chosen to target 33% of our operating budget as the amount that we want to have in our reserve fund. And we've maintained that and we continue to contribute to it. If we were to take all the money that's in that account, which is just slightly over 2 million now, and reallocate it for operating fund, that would pay for about 8 FTEs for 1 year, or 1 FTE for 8 years. But at the end of that period of time, when that money's gone, it's gone. Also looked at BLS transports, and as we talked about a year or so ago about the notion, because of time limits and that, I relied more heavily upon the briefing information that I provided then. But essentially, if we charged for the transport service, BLS transport service in the district, it's estimated that we could only really recover less than half of our costs that it would take to do that business. So it's not a revenue source, it just offsets a portion of the cost of doing it. We can go back to page, whatever, appendix 4, and it has kind of a detailed breakdown about the BLS transport analysis. And I'll highlight it, I don't want to belabor it, but we estimated there would be about 230 potential transports that we would provide in a year internally with the district. That average is about 0.7 of a call per day in the district. We also looked at the other impacts of do we have a sufficient staff to allocate to a BLS transport system, and what is the effect of it on our other business we have. And it would mean increased out of service time for our current members for each of the aid calls. It would increase the cost of maintaining and purchasing and maintaining equipment to support that program. We'd have to contract with a vendor to manage the billing process for that, and there's a cost to that. It would increase our insurance liability and umbrella premiums because it incurs a greater service risk than we currently have. It would require compliance with the federal HIPAA regulations and state HIPAA regulations, which we are not subject to now because we don't transport for profit. And it would be competing with a service right now, a private service that we use that, in my opinion, is doing a sufficient job of providing that without any increase to the taxpayer. Obviously, there are benefits. Obviously, there would be a minor reduction on-scene times by our crews until the transport could be conducted. It generally, providing that service, improves the continuity of care by our staff between the scene and the hospital, and it also enhances the district's or the EMT's experience in pre-hospital skills and knowledge. But if you look at the cost-benefit analysis, again, the average cost that we had in 2024 for an EMS call was $1,738, including all of the aspects, including labor and equipment and so forth. To provide BLS transport would be an additional $138 per call for us to provide that. So the total cost of us responding to and providing transport for a call would be $1,876. Based on the predictable sources of revenue, we would receive approximately $760 of payment or reimbursement. I had talked with the Olympia Fire Department fire chief about their program down there, and it's basically the same message. It's a balancing between the costs and the revenue, and the revenue is really driven by the number of events, number of calls. And their experience has been that to break even between expenses and revenues, they need to have each unit transport at least 5 to 8 times a day per unit. And I'll go back up and show you that our average transport probability would be about 7/10 of one call per 1 unit per day. We just don't have the business to create the volume for it to pan out. So I did not, and I don't recommend that for that reason, as well as the fact that we still have some uncertainty in our ability to reliably staff 2 EMT ambulance. So again, that source of revenue, I don't believe is certainly not a long term, and it isn't complete. I think that the message we were talking something about mobilization, for state mobilization, and I think it's really important to mention that the payments from the state or the feds, for that example, for that comment, was that it's reimbursement for your costs, reimbursement for labor costs, and reimbursement for equipment costs. And it's not intended it's intended to only make you whole based on their schedule, not make a profit. The state would not allow that, federal government would not allow that. So while we could mobilize, and we're looking at it, there really isn't any profit or independent source of revenue that can be obtained from that. But probably the greater controlling factor of that is, again, staffing. Do we have available staff that we can send out on mobilization? And the initial commitment for mobilization is about 14 days. So we lose 2 or more of our staff for at least 2 weeks. And how do we backfill that? And so by actively mobilizing exacerbates our problem of staffing at 2 fire stations. So it's counterproductive, even if we did get reimbursed for it. So it's still a controlling issue. And again, I don't consider that mobilization provides any additional source of revenue. The next thing that I did, and if you want to look back on the back page, here's a chart based on the results of our new collective bargaining wage rates and so forth. Part of the proposal that I had early on, even before we looked at the revenue picture, was to increase the executive staff above the COLA, which is provided through in our policy, is 2.7%. My recommendation was to increase it 2.3% for a total of a 5% increase. And most of that was based on the compression between primarily the chief and the assistant chief with the staff rates. I think that that's both reasonable, and I think it's both maintains a competitive salary for non-union staff and addresses the compression. And very honestly, one of the things I did look at was the amount of overhead that other fire departments have. And with the 3 people that we have that are considered overhead, is significantly less than our comparable fire departments. Ours is about a total of 7% of our operating budget, and most departments are running 10 to 15%. Some are higher. So we've worked hard to remain lean as best we can, and I think that this is part of recognition of that. So going back to the cover page, my recommendation to you is that for 2026, that we don't hire any additional new career staff. I'm also saying that we need to maintain the household budget of maintenance. We have to maintain training. We need to maintain our health and safety program, our support costs like insurance and IT and phone bill and the light bill, and then maintain our budget for our volunteer R&R staffing, which is
The one thing I haven't heard from you, Chief, is how much total cost of an increase is that if we were to approve you getting an increase? How much dollars is that between the 3 of you?
about $29,000 for the year.
And Chief, in addition to that, I know we base our labor contracts on comparables. Do you have those numbers for comparables or departments that are our size as well, and what their administrative staff is getting, and where are we at within those thresholds?
I don't have salary costs for comparables now.
Okay.
When we tried to get that several years ago, we had Heidi reach out to some other small departments, try and get executive salaries. And am I remembering that correct? And
Yeah, it's a lot.
and it was difficult to get them to cough that information up, or do I remember that incorrectly?
It was, and it was apples and oranges comparisons.
Yeah.
I don't have that information,
Yeah.
Jake.
I do recall going through, to a certain extent, that exercise several years ago, Jake.
Okay, I think that's an important piece, and I know how much work you do. I think we're in a way better place than a lot of departments our size, even within this county. And I'm not trying to diminish your value, but I don't want to approve something that doesn't carry weight in some like concrete numbers. I just don't have anything to compare it to. And again, this kind of goes back to the promises that we've made the public and fulfilling those promises, that we have a hard time paying for staff, but we'll go ahead and increase the COLA for our administrative staff. I think that's the wrong approach until we can base those numbers on some concrete evidence on what the staffing. Those numbers should be readily available. Those got to be public numbers because it's a public entity, so it has to be accessible.
And one of the things, though, I think you're correct. We should not price ourselves in a strange fashion compared to our comparable districts. But the other thing is, I think internally you need to recognize and look at the compression that we have because of the agreement that we just signed and kind of where we're at on that.
Agreed.
I mean, it's evident there between the battalion chiefs and the assistant chief. And they're, those are different realms of responsibility and that kind of thing.
Agreed. 100% agree. But those numbers are based on comparables. Ours should be the same, so we can justify the 5% increase.
Well, 2.3.
I guess yeah, it's 2.3.
Yeah, sorry. In addition to the COLA. Yeah.
Tell you that also our labor agreement increased everybody in the bargaining unit salary 6.5%.
I understand that based on comparables. I understand.
Yeah. So.
But, and again, I think we're taking a risk there by not fulfilling our promise in 2017 to staff 2 engines. And what we decide to do with the taxpayers' money is not fulfill that promise and offer an increased wage without evidence in doing so either. Like I think we're climbing we're on thin ice right here with not fulfilling these promises to the public. And I hate to go down a dark road to where we can't salvage those relationships by doing the right thing and the fiscally responsible thing with our money and with our numbers. It is important to me as a citizen that those 2 stations are staffed. And I think it is worth the risk when called, like I said this in the last meeting, when we have somebody out on Johnson Point and a second call goes out on Boston Harbor and we're unable to fill that request. It is important that service is the most valued thing within our mission statement, that we can provide the best thing for them. And sometimes I think we just need to take that risk. And by doing so, staffing 2 stations, I think we have a way better chance in passing any kind of excess levy in either 2028 or 29 to keep this thing rolling. Some things are just worth the risk. And I appreciate Chief Van Camp and all the numbers that you put together here, but we're going to have to take a risk at some point, one way or another.
And I totally agree with everything that Jake has said.
Right. And so I understand. I don't disagree with you in terms of being responsible to our constituents and that kind of thing. I would, to a certain extent, I would argue that spending an awful lot of emphasis or time on, what would you say, $29,000, Chief? $29,000 out of a budget of 7.8 million.
Yeah,
that's 3%, or something like that, or 0.3%. I mean, it's no. So it's I wouldn't want us to break our pick on that in particular, because there is a bigger concern, which is maintaining quality service to the extent that we can do it. To a certain extent, we're handcuffed with revenue that we get, and we had a plan that didn't pan out the way we thought it would exactly. I mean, I'm sure Lacey's in the same boat. They're struggling with what they're going to do. And,
Yep.
and hear you, Jake, when you talk about long-term, what happens with small departments. And I don't disagree that long-term things become aggregated, most likely, that kind of thing. But that's something that takes place over 4, 5, 6 years, and it's not
Agreed.
next year or the year after. So,
Agreed.
yeah,
Well, and the other thing is, we negotiated with the staff on what their raise would be, and I think we can negotiate this. I don't think it should be an extra 2.3%, maybe an extra 1% or 1.3%. But I don't think it should be the full amount that they want, the administrative staff wants. This is a negotiation thing, and I think we can appease you to get a little bit more than just your regular COLA, but not the full 5%. And I still want to see I still at least want to see 1 to 2 firefighters hired. Otherwise, I'm not I'm not agreeing with anything. I think we need to take the risk.
yeah.
I guess that brings up a bigger question. I think we're kind of at an impasse here. What does it look like moving forward? Does this come down to a vote? Does this come down to we take all this information, have Chief Van Camp and his team go and try to find some kind of comparable when it comes to the wages? What does it look like moving forward? How do we get through this thing? Because I think we're kind of divided within the commissioner board.
So again, we could, like you say, the executive staff salaries are public knowledge.
Yep.
Take some time to acquire that. I don't recall how long it took you last time, Heidi, when you were trying to do that.
It just depends on how soon people get back to me.
Right, and it's kind of depends on the responsiveness. I mean, we could put it in as a public records request, and then they would have 7 days to respond or tell us why they can't or what their timeline would be. So, but that's still a week or so. Next week is Thanksgiving week. Not sure folks are going to be available and that kind of thing. So it could be, a couple of weeks before we heard anything on that. If that's what you want to do in terms of having a surety that we are in a comparable zone with other agencies with regard to our executive staff.
I don't think it should be, if it's something I want to do, I think is it something that we want to do as a group? I think that's a fiscally responsible approach to how we pay our administrative staff, is have some comparable numbers, something that we can justify what we're paying them, and good or bad.
Well, right, and there's various ways of looking at that. I mean, again, if our overhead for administrative staff is on the order of, what I hear, 7%, something like that, 7, or say it's 8%, and other agencies are paying 15% or 10% or whatever, I don't know that that we're out of bounds.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, that's again a high level look at things, but again, it's not looking at whether it's $29,000, $28,000, $30,000. It's not looking at that granularity, but it's still looking at a level of comparison.
Okay, so we put a pin in that one, try to get some concrete numbers, come back, make a decision for that one.
Yep.
Okay, that seems reasonable to me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Gloria, I'm hearing you say you want to hire 2 firefighters. What do we do? Where does the money come from for that?
Well, I mean, we have the money in there. You're just saying we don't have it to sustain them for 2 or 3 years. But I still think we need to do it. We have such a turnover of employees, and we need to look at why do we have such a turnover of employees? Why are they leaving our department? What is it because they're transferring over to other departments? So we constantly have this revolving door. We need to figure out why we have a revolving door. But I still feel we need to make our commitment to our citizens to staff the stations. And if you need to take it from the CNR&R for a year, then we take it from the CNR&R. But we need to at least get 2 firefighters in there.
Right, and okay, so I don't know where your information comes from that we're having a lot of turnover. do you have?
Well, how many people have we lost? I mean, we had a lieutenant leave, we've had a couple, other people leave. We've had over the last couple years, we've had people transfer out of our department.
I think Brandon was gonna, he's the one that tracks it. He gives us our little, color coded view of how many staff we have.
I mean, because we've had to what do we promoted, what, 2 people in the last year into lieutenant positions because people had left? Or we needed another one? I'm not, I don't know the exact numbers. I'm just trying to remember off of history.
Degani and Bonzer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bonzer left to go to Olympia, Degani left to go, I don't remember where it was.
Central Pierce.
Yeah, Pierce County.
Yeah, and then we had to promote, up, and we promoted within the department, but then we had to still replace those firefighters into, and so we have this revolving door.
Okay. And that was maintaining status quo on our total census though, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, that wasn't. So, yeah, anyway.
It wasn't plus upping.
It wasn't increasing. So again, if you say, as you say, if we took the CR&R money and we used that to hire 1.8 FTE, or, had 2 people for 11 months, then we wouldn't have that money. I mean, we don't have enough money to hire 2 people for 1 entire year. The dollar value that was put in there gave us 1.8 FTE, 1.8 people for one year, right? So assume we did that and you got 1 and 3/4 of a person or something for 1 year. Then in 2027, you would lay those people off, right? Because you would have used the money in 2026. And then.
So you're saying we have absolutely no extra money in the budget to hire anybody? That means the admin person, no firefighters?
That's kind of how it comes out. Yes. I mean, again, the CR&R money is long-term planning for replacements or fixing things that break, any unexpected stuff. So we don't have a credit card that we could use if the roof blew off, if we don't have any CR&R money.
Well, I don't say use all the CNR money. I'm saying we need to look at what's the minimum amount of CNR money that we need to keep in reserve. I'm saying we need to eliminate the money that we're setting aside for vehicles.
Well, okay.
So you need to see the difference of what that is. What's the difference of how much money are we setting aside for replacing vehicles versus just what we need for, the repairs, equipment, the roof blows off, whatever. We need to look at that.
So in 2026, the plan is to spend $155,000 for vehicles. And then nothing until 2030. So that would hire 1 firefighter. And you wouldn't have those vehicles replaced until the next time that they came around, which would be 2031.
Okay. I don't know. I still think we have money sitting out there somewhere that is just not being on these sheets. That could be cut some of the departments back a little bit, for replacement of furniture or who knows what. I mean, there's expenses on here that, do we really use it every year?
Well, yeah, obviously you don't use that money every year. You accumulate it for when you do need it. So, I mean, you have a plan that you're gonna paint the inside of the building on a,
Yeah.
15 or 20-year basis, whatever it is. So you
And
just,
how much do we carry over every year? I mean, we're carrying a balance over every year.
right, and that's at the very bottom of that chart. Is that right? Did I read that right?
That's the ending cash balance.
So is that the beginning balance is like 889,000?
Yes.
Have we taken the time to go back through that budget and see if we can make any small cuts to attempt for these positions? I know at our district, we've been dealing with budget stuff for the last couple of months, and we've been sitting with our finance director, and we've been making small cuts on every single division that's coming out there to accommodate some of these new hires that we have coming here in the first of the year. Have we made an attempt to at least look at some of those numbers and cut some of those things back a little bit?
We do that every year, Jay.
Okay, have we done it, Chief, since we found out that we're not getting the 6.5 and we're going to 1.5% AV?
I'm sorry?
Have we done that since we have figured out that our 6.5 anticipated increased percentage for AV has gone down to 1.5? Have we looked at it since we've gotten those numbers?
That doesn't, the revenue doesn't make any difference. The cost of assets and the plan is to pay for assets. The revenue,
So when was the last time you did an evaluation of the dollars needed for the different programs?
every year,
Okay,
we do that.
wait, every year, when,
when we looked, when.
right, it happened in 2025. Was it in January or was it in October? It was October, they just did that. Yeah, I think that's what you're asking.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. So that assessment was made when?
No, he's asking about expenses.
Oh.
When did we look at expenses last?
You know,
In
part of
October?
the annual review process, September, October.
Okay, I think that's what he's
Okay,
asking.
yeah,
Sorry.
so, okay. This is fun. Hope everybody's enjoying this.
Oh. Where do we want to go from here?
Yeah, again, to the appendix 2, and the second time I brought this up, it seems to me, it doesn't matter what we do. Even if we hire 0 people, we're gonna have to go out for an excess levy in what I can tell is probably 2029. If we hire the 2 people, we're gonna have to go out for an excess levy in 2028. Now, that's correct, right?
You'd have to start, receiving revenues in those time periods.
Yep. So no matter what we do, we are going to have to go out and ask the public for some kind of financial compensation, no matter what we do.
Right.
Do we?
Plan.
That was part of the original plan, and
Yep,
but if
100%.
if you were to hire 2 firefighters and need the money starting in 2028, that means in 2027, you're gonna have to ask them for additional dollars, right?
That's correct.
And they
Yep.
will
Mhm.
continue to, they'll already be paying in 2027 and 2028 what we've already asked them for. So we'd be asking for additional dollars, it'd be an excess levy on top of our excess levy.
Yeah, I'm aware. So the real question is if we're gonna have to ask them to approve an excess levy anyways, it doesn't matter what year, do we make that attempt for the approval with the excess levy with more firefighters on the road? Or our current status of filling that station 80% of the time? What chances do we have on passing that levy if we make an attempt as a group, as an organization, to staff that rig 100% of the time? As opposed to asking them for more money in 2028, 2029, and not making an attempt to staff that engine out there at 81s or 83s. I think that's a question that we have to ask ourselves. What gives us the better chance to pass this levy, no matter what year?
Well,
I think we need to do the 2 firefighters and then ask for the levy. If we can't staff the stations, we've tried in the past, and it's never got staffed fully percent. If we don't get that stations staffed 100%, I can guarantee those levies are not going to pass. And then no
Well-
matter what, we're still going to have to fire them.
I would look at it a little differently in terms of the voter. So you made a promise to the voter that if you give me $2 million a year, escalating a little bit, that we will implement a plan that we have drawn up. And now we're coming back and saying, oops, well, we drew up our plan, we did the best job we could. And now we need to not only have you continue to pay us for that plan, but you need to pay us for additional folks on top of the $2 million. And so you're mounting levies on top of levies. And I just don't see the
Well,
voter.
technically you can't do that. So we're locked in until 2028. We have what's known as debt capacity. And so technically we can't ask for, we could ask for a GO bond, but
Okay.
that will be an additional tax that a taxpayer would have to pay. But prior to 2028, it's very unlikely, and I'm not sure it's even legal, that we could ask for an additional excess levy.
Okay. Right.
So again, what I'm pointing out is the fact that we're very limited in the revenue or money we have available to spend. Everything we do to increase the expending will create a deficit account, which is not legal in the state of Washington.
Well, then one of the other solutions down the road is we may end up being managed by Lacey and do some kind of arrangement with them in order to be able to keep staffing our stations.
And that's true.
That might happen regardless of what decisions we make at this table. I mean, that's the unfortunate truth for smaller departments. And we've done a great job. Chief Van Camp and his team have done a great job over the years. But any kind of recession affects us in a huge way that the longevity of these smaller departments just aren't succeeding anymore. And that's why having these bigger conversations, that's not today, but at some point, I think would do us a lot of good. I know that doesn't give us any answers for today by any means, but it's in the tea leaves.
So, well, here's my thought for today. Pam was not able to join us at all and be part of the conversation. And we don't have to adopt something as in terms of a budget today. We don't need to adopt a budget till January or something, isn't it?
There's no legal date.
Yeah, no legal date.
No.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, internally, we do have to have something. It's good business practice. But we don't have a legal requirement on making a decision today or even the next regular meeting.
Okay.
So.
Well, then that gives us time to get the comparables for the administrative staff.
Yes,
And I think we can discuss this future if we have to do another workshop to finalize everything and then go into a meeting to approve or not approve or whatever, then we can decide that in January if we have to.
Mr. Bivens, do you have anything that thoughts you wanted to share?
Do not, actually, at this point, I'm really 50-50 either way. So,
I still need you all to sign, a couple things. I've got the union agreement. It only has 2 signatures by, board members. And looks like I'm only missing Gloria on the levy ordinances, which I could turn it in without that, but I think we do need more signatures on
We
the,
need it for them.
yeah, on the union paperwork, so.
Heidi, when do you have to have that turned in by? Because I'll be back on December 6th.
Well, levy stuff I need to turn in by the 30th, And then I don't know about the union agreement,
Soon as possible.
soon as possible.
I could be in there tomorrow.
Okay, great. I'll leave it on my desk in an envelope.
Yeah, as long as we get a quorum on the union document, I think that'll be good.
Yeah,
And did you say that the other one,
the 30th.
is
It's
the
good.
30th?
It's only missing one signature. I can turn it in.
So it's got a quorum of
Yeah,
signatures
that one's
also.
okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
not a
See a
big-
quorum on the other one.
Okay, so the CBA is the one that's important right now.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, everyone, for your time,
Okay.
for your input. This is not easy.
No,
Nope.
it's not.
Never is.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. We'll make sure we get Pam up to speed, give her an opportunity here to share any thoughts that she has and be part of the conversation as well.
Okay. This is recorded, so she can listen to the recording too, can't she?
Yes, you
Yes.
can.
Okay, that might be a better way so she can hear everybody's views and everything of what was discussed.
Agreed.
That's a good idea. I'll let her know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. With that, we'll close our meeting. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Have a nice